Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Tonight I've got a real spine chiller for you, something that happened to me that I swear is true, and it still gives me the creeps just thinking about it. So strap in, hit that like button if you're into creepy stories, and let's get into it. So this all started back when I was in 8th grade. Seems like ages ago now, but some things you just don't forget, especially nights like this one. My best buddy Ethan and I were set on making the most out of our summer break. You know how it is. No school, no homework, just endless days and nights to goof off and have fun. Ethan was my main man, the kind of friend you could always count on for an adventure or just chilling out when you needed it. We decided to kick off one of those hot, lazy summer evenings with a sleepover at my place. My parents were cool with Ethan coming over. They treated him like another son. We had the whole night planned out. First, we'd grab our bikes and head over to Taco Bell for a late-night snack, our favorite haunt, because, let's be honest, nothing beats Taco Bell at midnight when you're a couple of teens with an appetite for tacos and burritos. Riding under the starry sky, laughing and joking the whole way there, the warm night air felt like freedom. We locked up our bikes outside and sauntered in, the bell above the door jingling as we entered the brightly lit haven of fast food. The place wasn't busy, just a few other night owls like us, and the familiar smell of spicy ground beef and fried tortillas hit us right away. We ordered a heap of tacos, some nachos, and a couple of those slushy drinks to cool off. Ethan, as always, was cracking jokes with the cashier, making everyone around chuckle. He had that kind of infectious energy that just made you want to be in whatever room he was in. After we filled our tray with more food than we probably needed, we chose a booth by the window, sprawling out as we dug in. The food was great, but it was the conversations that really filled those nights with memories. We talked about everything: girls we liked, games we wanted to play, plans for the rest of the summer. It was one of those perfect nights, you know. Just me and my best friend talking about nothing and everything until our bellies were full and our eyelids were heavy. But the night was still young, at least for us. So after we were done at Taco Bell, we hopped back on our bikes, the cool night air now a refreshing contrast to the warm, greasy air of the restaurant. The ride back was quiet, comfortable. We were content in that easy silence that only best friends can share, our bikes' tires humming softly on the pavement beneath the glow of the streetlights. Once we got back to my place, we parked our bikes in the garage and headed up to my room. The plan was to game until we couldn't keep our eyes open anymore. My room was our usual hangout spot, decked out with an old but trusty TV, a couple of gaming consoles, and 2 beanbags that had seen better days but were perfect for marathon gaming sessions. That's where things took a turn though. Little did we know, our perfect summer night was about to get a whole lot darker, and not just because the sun had set. What happened next? Well, that's where the story really begins. We bounded up the stairs to my room, a little out of breath but pumped for the night ahead. As we burst through the door, I tossed my keys on the desk and flicked on the light. My room was the typical teen's haven, posters of rock bands and action movies plastered on the walls, clothes strewn about, and gaming gear scattered everywhere. Ethan dumped his backpack on the floor, claiming his usual spot on the right beanbag as I grabbed the controllers. First order of business, COD Zombies. We were determined to beat our last high score. I booted up the console and the TV flickered to life, the opening credits rolling as we settled in. The glow from the screen cast eerie shadows around the room, setting the perfect ambiance for a night of zombie slaying. We were totally in our element, shouting strategies and jeering each other's missteps, completely absorbed in the challenge. After what felt like a couple of hours, which in reality was probably much more, our eyes were gritty from staring at the screen, and our fingers cramped from mashing buttons. Despite our efforts, we were consistently getting slaughtered by the 10th round, much to our frustration. "Man, we suck tonight," Ethan laughed, rubbing his eyes. I agreed with a grunt, pausing the game to stretch my legs. That's when we decided to take a breather, just lying back and letting the room spin a bit as our eyes adjusted. The adrenaline from the game was tapering off, replaced by a wave of fatigue. But true to form, our second wind was just around the corner. We began our usual midnight ramble, talking about the new girl in class, the upcoming soccer tryouts, and which superhero would win in a bizarre set of hypothetical battles. During the chatter, Ethan, always the more health-conscious one, stuck to sipping water from the cup he'd brought along, tightly capped to avoid spills. Our nightstand was cluttered with old game cartridges, a lamp, and our cups filled earlier. Ethan's was meticulously placed away from the edge, mine haphazardly near my elbow. As our conversation drifted from school gossip to plans for the summer, Ethan's voice suddenly faltered. I turned to see him staring down at his cup with a puzzled look on his face. "Dude, I swear something's in my cup." "It moved," he murmured, holding the cup cautiously away from him. I laughed it off, assuming he was just trying to freak me out. "Man, stop it. You're just seeing things because we're tired." But Ethan wasn't having any of it. His usual easygoing smile was gone, replaced by a tight line of concern. "No, seriously. I felt something weird when I took a sip. It wasn't right," he insisted, peeking into the cup with a mix of curiosity and revulsion. Now, Ethan wasn't one for dramatics, and seeing him like this started to unsettle me a bit. He kept describing a cold, slimy sensation that he felt sliding down his throat, a feeling too visceral to just brush off as fatigue. Trying to lighten the mood, I joked, "What, did a zombie crawl into your cup while we weren't looking?" He didn't laugh. We decided to switch off the lights and call it a night, the unsettling conversation casting a shadow over our usual laid-back vibe. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of what would turn into the longest night of my life. As we settled under our covers, the room now dark except for the moonlight streaming through the window, the atmosphere had shifted. Gone was the carefree laughter, replaced by a tense silence that neither of us could shake off. We tried to brush off the weird vibe and just get some sleep. The room was quiet. The only sounds were the occasional car passing by outside and the faint hum of the PC in the corner. It should have been just another night, but sleep didn't come easy. I kept tossing and turning, half expecting to hear Ethan say it was all a prank. But the night wore on in silence. It must have been around 4 a.m. when I finally drifted into a restless sleep. The next thing I knew, I was waking up to the gray light of early morning filtering through the curtains. I rolled over, expecting to see Ethan either asleep or messing around on his phone. But his sleeping bag was empty, neatly zipped and untouched since he'd made it up last night. His cup was tipped over on the nightstand, a small puddle of water beneath it. That was the first sign that something was off. "Ethan?" I called out, my voice groggy from sleep. No answer. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, scanning the room for any sign of him. That's when I noticed the window. It was wide open, which was strange because we definitely hadn't opened it last night. The curtain fluttered slightly with the breeze, and I felt a chill that wasn't from the air. I got up and walked over to the window, peering out into the backyard. It was empty, quiet except for the distant sound of a dog barking. Panic started to set in. "Ethan!" I shouted louder this time, hoping he'd jump out and laugh, telling me it was all a joke. But nothing. I rushed downstairs, yelling for my parents, who were already up and about in the kitchen. "Mom, Dad, have you seen Ethan?" I asked, trying to keep the alarm out of my voice. They hadn't, and seeing the worry on my face, they began to ask questions. Where had I last seen him? When? Was everything okay last night? I explained about the cup, the weird thing he said, and the open window. My dad went out to check around the house while my mom called Ethan's parents. Within an hour, our house turned into a flurry of activity. Ethan's parents arrived, panic clear on their faces as they spoke with my parents. The police showed up, asking more questions, taking notes. They checked his last known whereabouts, started calling his friends. I mentioned the window, the cup, the weird feeling Ethan had. They seemed skeptical, but noted everything down. Days turned into weeks with no sign of Ethan. The local community rallied, organizing search parties and putting up flyers. I was questioned over and over by the police, each time reliving that night, trying to figure out if I had missed something, a detail that could explain any of this. Then, about 3 months later, some kids found him, or what was left of him, in the woods on the outskirts of town. They were geocaching and stumbled upon a pile of bones arranged in a clearing, like some macabre sculpture. The police confirmed they were Ethan's. How he got there, why it happened, and what exactly led to his death were all unanswered. They speculated about an animal attack, but nothing in the area could explain the precise arrangement of his bones. The town was in shock. Parents clutched their kids a little tighter. Whispers of wild animals and foul play buzzed through conversations. But deep down, I knew it wasn't something normal or natural. It was something else. Something unexplainable and terrifying, linked to that weird feeling Ethan had about something in his cup that night. What had seemed like paranoia at the time now felt like a chilling premonition of the horror that was about to unfold. Life after Ethan's disappearance was a blur of mundane days, punctuated by sharp stabs of grief. The town slowly returned to its normal rhythm, but for those of us who knew Ethan, things would never be the same again. Despite the police closing the case as an unresolved mystery, the questions haunted me. What happened that night? Was it really just an animal? Or something more sinister, linked to the bizarre feeling Ethan described before he vanished? Months turned into years, and while the intense scrutiny and speculation gradually faded, my own obsession did not. I couldn't let it go, no matter how hard I tried. I found myself wandering the woods where they found Ethan, searching for anything that might make sense of the senseless. Then just a few days ago, as if pulled by some unseen force, I found myself back in those woods. It was late afternoon, the light fading fast, casting long shadows that twisted and turned like the questions in my mind. I had Bella with me, my faithful German shepherd, who had grown from a pup into a solid, reassuring presence at my side. We walked the familiar paths, the silence around us a stark contrast to the cacophony of my thoughts. The woods were quiet, too quiet, and a chill hung in the air that had nothing to do with the weather. As we reached a particularly secluded spot, a foul stench suddenly hit me. It was overpowering, a sickly sweet odor that made my stomach churn. Bella growled, her body tense, ears pricked. Then the rustling started. It was subtle at first, just a whisper in the leaves, but it grew louder, more frantic. My heart raced, and I clenched my fists, ready to run. That's when we heard it, wheezing, labored breathing that seemed to come from all around us. I turned in circles trying to pinpoint the source, but it was useless. The sound moved, or maybe it was my mind playing tricks on me. Bella barked, her growls growing louder, more urgent. I felt a rush of adrenaline, the instinct to protect myself, to protect Bella, overwhelming everything else. We ran. The woods became a blur of dark greens and browns as we raced through the undergrowth. Branches whipped at my face, but I barely felt them. We burst out of the trees into the clearing near my house, lungs burning, Bella still growling beside me. I thought we were safe once we got home, but that night proved me wrong. As darkness fell, the house felt oppressive, claustrophobic. I tried to distract myself with TV, but couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The wheezing had followed us, or it had never left the woods. It was hard to tell anymore. It started as a distant noise, barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator, but it grew louder, closer. I checked the windows, the doors, all locked. Yet the sound continued to grow, a breathy, wheezing gasp that echoed through the hallways of my home. Panic set in. I grabbed Bella, locking us both in the bathroom. I pushed the heavy cabinet against the door, anything to put a barrier between us and whatever was out there. My mind raced. Was this the same thing that took Ethan? Was it coming for me now? The realization hit hard. The terror wasn't just in the woods. It had followed me home, creeping into the places where I once felt safest. As I sit here now, barricaded in my bathroom, recording this in hopes that someone will understand if I don't make it. Remember, Always be aware of your surroundings and never dismiss the feeling that something just isn't right. Here I am, folks, barricaded in my bathroom with only my loyal dog and my racing thoughts for company. The wheezing noise grows louder, more insistent, as if whatever is out there knows I'm close to breaking. I keep replaying the last few days in my mind, trying to piece together how it could have come to this. I thought I was chasing ghosts in those woods, looking for answers about Ethan, but maybe I was just inviting trouble right into my home. As I sit against the cold tile, the weight of the heavy dresser pressed against the door, I can't help but think about Ethan's last night at my place. He'd been so sure about something being in his cup, something unseen and unsettling. Now I wonder if that same unseen terror didn't just end with him. Maybe it lingered, waiting for the right moment to strike again. It's funny, in a horrific sort of way, how much you miss the mundane annoyances of daily life when faced with unexplainable fear. The wheezing becomes a raspy gurgle, and I swear it feels like the air in the room grows colder with each breath. Bella senses it too. Her ears are pinned back, her eyes wide and alert. The sound is right outside the bathroom now, a suffocating presence that's pressing against every inch of the door. The light flickers, and for a moment, I feel a profound dread, the kind that roots you to the spot even when every instinct screams to run. I don't know how long I can hold out here, or what will happen if that thing gets in. The stories always make it seem like there's a hero who finds a way to win in the end. But sitting here, I feel anything but heroic. I'm just a guy who loved his friend and now misses him terribly. A guy who maybe pushed too hard to find answers that were better left alone. There's a sudden crash against the door, strong enough to make the dresser shudder. Bella barks furiously, her growls mixing with the relentless wheezing on the other side. I grab anything I can use as a weapon. A plunger, the lid of the toilet tank? Ridiculous, really, but what choice do I have? Then, as quickly as it escalated, the noise stops. Silence floods the room, so heavy and complete it's almost as terrifying as the noise had been. I wait, holding my breath, listening for any sign of movement. Minutes stretch into what feels like hours. Bella's growls subside into whimpers. She's scared, I can tell, but she stays close, her body pressed against my leg. I muster the courage to move, slowly shifting the dresser just enough to peek outside. The house is dark, the only light coming from the moon casting shadows through the windows. There's nothing there, no sign of the horrific presence that had tormented us. It's just gone, vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. Relief washes over me, but it's tinged with an unshakable unease. I know things can't go back to how they were. The experience has changed me, haunted me with the knowledge of how fragile our grasp on the normal world can be. As I finally leave the bathroom, stepping into the uncertain safety of my home, I can't shake the feeling that some truths are too terrifying to understand, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. If you're out there listening, remember to hold on to the mundane moments, cherish the quiet nights, and maybe, just maybe, be wary of what you leave out in the dark. Stay safe, stay skeptical, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Could there be a rational explanation? Or is the world more mysterious than we dare to imagine? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your cups covered. Good night, everyone.